chameleon. There's absolutely.
Just to let you know, I have both of those clips ready for you.
Thank you. I want to start with
Unless you're a chameleon.
the judge.
Visits
And did you want that as like a cold open like yesterday?
Mm-hmm.
National Highway.
Okay.
No, let me start with the pastors.
Council.
Okay.
And
yeah.
at the
first
top,
one that you sent
and
me.
then at 6:30 the judge, and at the top the pastors, and then at 7:30 the judge. We'll toggle it.
Okay.
This is AP News. I'm Rita Foley. First, the good news. COVID trends are improving in Florida.
Oh, Matt's calling Reverend Hatch right now.
Okay, thank you.
For the summer. Now the bad news. Hospitalizations are increasing in the West, and the highly contagious Delta variant is fueling outbreaks in the North. Experts are worried about what's ahead. Dr. Nicholas Gilpin at Beaumont Hospital in suburban Detroit says hospitalizations are up there, as are the number of positive COVID tests.
Signals that we are in a...
We have Reverend Hatch on the line.
Okay, Pastor Hatch, how are you?
I'm super this morning. How are you doing?
Doing great. Thank you so much for coming in with us today. What we're going to do, I need you to wrap in 5 minutes because I need to be out by about 6:16. Okay?
Absolutely.
With your assessment.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
I got it. Absolutely.
How's your family?
We're doing very well
Today,
today,
lawyers
thank
in the
God.
Rittenhouse murder trial
Praise God,
in
right.
Doing well.
will debate how to instruct the jury in the case. The jury will not be present for this. Rittenhouse is charged with shooting two men dead during a protest and wounding
Sorry,
a
I'm
third.
trying to get one
Here's
last
Jennifer King.
The judge
story
agreed
up.
jury instructions and closing arguments could be held Monday in a Wisconsin murder case that has stirred fierce debate.
Okay.
Prosecutors have
So
sought
what do you
to
make of all
investigator in Atlanta.
This is the beginning of the uncivil war.
To the streets of
Shooting in the streets.
during destructive
I
protests.
think he's gonna walk,
That are decided.
and it's gonna be it's gonna be a devastating marker for the country. You know, it means that the hot war has already begun in the streets now.
Sure.
Yeah, this is how
Lisa Murkowski
the uncivil war starts. You know, the civil war is in the streets now.
re-election.
Kind of
The
sort
80s
of where
Mike
we
Hedlund
are.
says a lot of people are going to be watching
Yeah.
this.
This is where we are. Where we are. Where we are. Where we are. Where we are.
Dangerous time.
Well, you know, it's just, but the first Civil War was never finished, right?
No.
So we're still in the midst of that. That's why it's easier for us to pause and look at World War II and all of that. You know, because I was telling one of my friends whose family came here, they survived the Holocaust, God bless them. And I said, you know, it's easier for us to deal with the Holocaust because that's not the Holocaust that happened here.
Government and police are struggling to
You know, said the Holocaust that happened here happened to Black people and to indigenous people first.
I'm Rita
I said,
Foley.
until we can deal with that,
This is 828
that's just,
WCPT Willow Springs.
you gotta deal with what happened here.
820.com. We
You
are
know,
Chicago's
with what
progressive
happened
talk.
here.
Facts matter.
It's the remnants are here.
WCPT
You know.
820 Chicago Traffic.
Absolutely.
Please, I see, we see Confederate flags and we get jumpy, all Black folks. Like, okay, I know where I am now and I need to get up out of this piece. Something's not gonna work out too well for me, for us. So, you know, it's just something that you just know. It's not something you just know, unfortunately. It's just part of our lives.
That farther north, we see roadwork delays from 52.
And it's part of all of our lives. You know what's up. So let me say hello to everybody. Hey, everybody, you know, we're talking about these two cases. Rorschach test for all of us in the United States. The Kyle Rittenhouse case, do you think he's going to walk? How many people are feeling that he will?
That's the sound of
want to
the
know what your
ComEd
thoughts are.
energy efficiency program.
What are your
Saving
thoughts
you money
about this
and
case?
energy.
And why
With rebates
why
on Energy
has this
Star
case, the
appliances.
Kyle Rittenhouse case and the Ahmaud Arbery case,
So you can
which had
come
been
back
pushed under the rug,
to a
Pastor
home full of
Hatch, for
savings.
2 months? Didn't even know that it had
Discover more
happened
ways to save at
last year during the
ComEd.com
pandemic.
/home savings. ComEd.
But it's good to be with
Powering
everyone this
lives.
morning. I've got
Tom
Pastor
Hartman.
Marshall Hatch with me today.
1 minute.
Come up with is that they want more people to die.
Brilliant
Now, why
preacher,
would they want more people
theologian.
to die? Well, because if they can get the
And
pandemic
we are going to
rolling
get
again
going
here in the
on
United States, it will cause states to shut down.
the
And if
Ahmaud
states
Arbery
shut down,
case,
then
and
the
the defense
economy
is
goes in the
rested
tank.
in the
And if
Kyle
the economy
Rittenhouse
goes in the
case. So
tank,
what do you
the
think about
party in
that,
power
everybody? I mean,
always
what do you
loses
think?
the next election. The Tom
What do
Hartman
you think?
Radio
I want to know what your thoughts are.
Weekdays, 11
Where's this
a.m.
going?
to
What does
2
it say about all of
on
us?
WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Okay.
Did you know that more than
Thank you so much. Have a great show,
you
Matt.
find poison risks hidden in plain sight?
You too, thank you.
Thank you very
There are
much.
actions you can take to poison-proof your home, like keeping household cleaners locked up high and away from children, properly labeling and securing medicines and supplements, and installing carbon monoxide detectors near bedrooms and furnaces. Visit poisonhelp.hrsa.gov to learn more, or call your local poison center at 1-800-222-1222, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Okay, that's what I was looking for.
Because facts matter. You are listening to WCPT 820.
And the idea that we're going to be serially bringing these people in to sit with the victim's family one after another, obviously there's only they can. And if their pastor's Al Sharpton right now, that's fine, but then that's it. We don't want any more black pastors coming in here, or other Jesse Jackson, whoever was in here earlier this week, sitting with the victim's family, trying to influence the jury in this case. And I'm not saying the state is even aware that Mr. Sharpton was in the courtroom. I certainly wasn't aware of it until last night. But I think the court can understand my concern about bringing people in who really don't have any ties to this case other than political interest.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Good morning, everybody. How you doing? It's Santita Jackson on the Santita Jackson Show, WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio. The voice of progressive Minnesota, sending all my love to everybody in Chicago, in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and all over the country and all over the world those of you who are tuning in on YouTube on the Santita Jackson Show channel. Please continue to like and subscribe there, and all of everybody over on the Santita Jackson and Friends page on Facebook and on YouTube. Please like and subscribe and like and share. Linda, Dave, Jarvis, Linear Bob, Betty, Charlie, Jewel, everybody, please, Shirley from beautiful Philadelphia, Paula, hey, Deborah, Louie, everybody, please share the show at least once today, okay? Share the show. Let's make it a goal of 5. Share it to 5 people in your network. Would you do that? Would you do that? We're talking about Ahmaud Arbery. And these cases, indeed, it's really the McMichael and Bryan case, the murder trial of Ahmaud Arbery and Kyle Rittenhouse. What do you make of these? What do you make of these cases? They're winding down. Well, should I say the Kyle Rittenhouse case has wound down. The defense has rested. Where do you think this is going to go? Of course, we just heard a member of Ahmaud Arbery's defense team who said that he did not want black preachers, historically the freest leaders in our community, in the black community, to be at the court. For the record, Reverend Jackson has not been there. Reverend Sharpton has been there. But perhaps he is uneasy that Reverend Jackson, at the age of 80 with Parkinson's, might show up. I don't know. So what do you think about all of this, everybody? What do you think about all of this? And what are these cases saying about who we are and where we are as an American people? Period. 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. You can text me at that number as well. I'm looking forward to hearing your voices on Friday, November 12th, 2021. Let's get to some of these headlines so that we can get to some good news, everybody. Chicago, we're going to have a high of 43 degrees. We're going to have some more rain today. Minneapolis, St. Paul, snow and rain, 39 degrees. Winter is upon us, everybody. I can't believe it. The Dow closed down 158 points yesterday. The NASDAQ closed up 81 points, and the S&P 500 closed up 2.5 points. The Timberwolves will be playing the Lakers tonight, and the Bulls will be facing off against the Warriors. Some great weekend basketball. In the NHL, the Golden Knights, well, they were triumphant over the Wild, and the Coyotes will be here in Chicago tonight. The NFL, well, the Dolphins were triumphant over the Ravens. Oh, just they play football all week, all the time, everybody. What else is going on in the world? It's the last day of the climate change conference in Glasgow, Scotland. After 2 weeks of talks, the big question is, will the 197 participating countries, what will they have to show for it all? Negotiators are working hard on the final details of the Glasgow Agreement. We will see what they will have. They've got to work on climate change. The Maldives, the islands of the Maldives, they calculate that they will be underwater. Their prime minister is now looking for a place to put all of his citizens because they will not have land to be on. Can you believe that? The defense has rested at the case of the murder trial of Kyle Rittenhouse. What will be the outcome? You let me know what you think. Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. Some people are calling it an arrogant insensitivity. As attorney Kevin Goff, who is working for the defense team, he's a part of the defense team of the men who murdered Ahmaud Arbery. He said we don't want any more black pastors in here. Is he fear-mongering everybody? That's what some people are saying. What do you think about that? Coronavirus, more than 2 million at-home COVID-19 tests produced by a company have been recalled by the company due to higher than acceptable false positives. Got to ask Dr. Shanina Knighton about that in just a few minutes. How safe, or should I say how accurate, are these at-home tests for COVID-19? How safe are they? There's a veterans group that's on an annual mission to reclaim November 11th as a day for peace. Did you know that Veterans Day was actually a day for peace? That's right. Just as Mother's Day was a day, Mother's Day for peace. Most of these holidays don't celebrate war. They actually advocate for peace, but somehow or another we've lost that along the way. France has returned 26 looted artifacts and artworks to the country of Benin, a country that they had colonized formerly, and now many European countries are looking to return the artifacts that they have stolen. Good for France. All right, Pastor Marshall Hatch, I need some good news from you. The New Mount Pilgrim Missionary Baptist Church on the Great West Side of Chicago. You need to get on over there because it is one of the most beautiful cathedrals, yes, I said cathedrals, in the world. They have the largest representations of black civil rights heroes in stained glass in the world. Don't miss it. Pastor Hatch, what's the good news today?
Good morning, Santita, and good morning to the radio audience. Listen, the scripture says, Acts 1 and 8, right in that beginning of the New Testament book, Acts, you shall receive power after the Holy Spirit has come upon you, and you will be witnesses unto me, Jesus says, and to Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and the uttermost parts of the world. You shall receive power. You know, when I was growing up here on the west side of Chicago, we had a hero whose name has reemerged in recent years. There's a movie out about him called Judas and the Black Messiah. It was about Fred Hampton, and Fred Hampton, of course, courageous. Your dad and Chairman Fred and others were just heroes and titans in that season around the late 60s. And it was the Black Panther Party's mantra, of course, power to the people. And you just mentioned, this sort of fear-mongering about black preachers, often because of our understanding of the political implications of the gospel. You shall receive power after the Holy Spirit has come upon you. That literally what God has done in this New Testament, in this new season, in this beginning of the modern world 2,000 years ago, is elevate our understanding of the good news that God has given power to the people, that the power is on the inside. You shall receive the power on the inside, literally the power of God, literally the presence of God now your understanding is elevated in this New Testament gospel, this elevation of your faith, God has put the power in the people. That the power is not floating around, but the power is empowered. It's incarnated. The power is now within. And just think about how revolutionary that thought is as we wake up this morning and all of the issues we face, all of the challenges we face in this country. We've got some difficult days ahead when we look at these, what the implications of what we're seeing, that perhaps the uncivil war has already started, that there is violence, political violence, disparity between the rich and the poor, that the country is literally may go to hell, as Dr. King says. But the good news is the power is in us to transform everything around us. The power is within. And so the teaching of this New Testament gospel, we shall receive power, is that literally when you're looking for God, God is within us. We have the power. We have been empowered by God, the work of God. And it also has great implications, secondly, obviously, for the value of community in a season like this. In other words, we look for God within, and we also look for God in one another. We're going to have to come together as communities and communities of mutual support and mutual help, and combining our power together and deal with the challenges all around us. You shall receive power. The power is within you. The power is in your community to change the world. And so we see God within. And ultimately that power, Santita, is not just ordinary power, but it's resurrection power. Mm. It thought Jesus had been done away with, that his name would be extinguished from the earth forever. And lo and behold, this is the power of resurrection. That there is nothing too hard for God.
Amen.
That God has even raised Jesus from the dead. And so the power in us is bounce back power, resurrection power. Have a good morning. The power is within you to bounce back.
Love it. Pastor Marshall Hatch, everybody, the New Mount Pilgrim. Oh, he's a missionary Baptist. It's a missionary Baptist church, and they are on a mission, helping people one by one in that community, and whatever your faith commitment. And some of you, I'm sensitive to the fact, might be agnostic or atheist. I hope that you can take something away from these messages in the morning, because there's a lot in this society today that presses us down, and I want you to know. And I hope that you walk away from this show every day lifted up, if only a little bit. Blessings to Pastor Marshall Hatch, sending you much love and my love to the First Lady and to those wonderful children you have who are now wonderful young people who are contributing so much to the society. Wonderful, wonderful family, the Hatch family. Oh, godly they are. Everybody, we've got Dr. Shanina Knighton, infection preventionist, registered nurse, PhD, clinical research scholar at Case Western Reserve University. We're so honored to have her, so just blessed to have her just about every morning. And I have some questions for you. You wanted to talk to us about really looking at how we wear our masks. But I had a quick question for you about this thought. Israel is now holding war games to prepare for a more lethal COVID strain. This exercise, according to this report from MSN, this is warm gamed over 3 sessions to stimulate the passage of time after a potential flare-up. Is that something that would be helpful for us to do in the United States?
So, Santita, good morning. I always say the problem that we have is that we don't stay ready. And that's the big issue. So, I personally get agitated when I keep hearing, oh, it's a more lethal strain. Oh, this strain ain't so deadly. Oh, this one is bad. Oh, this one is good. I want people to think back to H1N1, right? Mm. So if there were approximately 56 million people that got H1N1, that could have potentially been millions of deaths in the United States just from H1N1, right? The problem is literally because people thought they understood the severity early on, they said to themselves, you know what, this isn't that bad. But what we saw with H1N1 is that there were long-term effects associated with it that we didn't think about until after the fact because we were so caught up with what was happening right then and there. My concern right now, because that's the thing, when we talk about like the H1N1 complications, that back then, it was a worsening of heart disease, asthma, pneumonia, neurological symptoms, including confusion and seizures, right? From H1N1. And people say, oh, it was 56 million people affected, so we good. So people probably went into the same pandemic with this same mindset. Is that, okay, well, people didn't die from it, so we're okay. Our issue is we have to stop just thinking about the now and start thinking about the long term. If you say to yourself, you know what, I don't need to wear a mask no more because I'm vaccinated. Mm-hmm. I don't need to wear a mask no more because everybody else not wearing a mask. Oh, I can relax my protocols because ain't nobody really getting sick. That's when you slip up and end up being the one getting sick. Same exact thing when we talk about, like, let's say, sexually transmitted diseases. If you decide just at one time you're not going to use protection, and guess what? You end up with a sexually transmitted disease or you end up pregnant. The whole purpose is to decrease your risk of being at risk from these things. And so that's my concern, is that when you hear in the media, which to me at times is fear-mongering over things that we really should already be practicing. So I want people to find a comfortability so much with their infection prevention practices that when somebody comes out and say, oh, it's an emergent strain, it's so deadly, or somebody say, oh, this strain can cause, your ear to fall off, whatever that is, it's like at this point, be unbothered because your practices are so ready already, meaning that you know that you are incorporating these practices into your daily lives, meaning, yes, I'm cleaning my hands so thoroughly and I'm conscious of when I touch the doorknob. I'm conscious of who's in my space. I'm conscious of who I'm around. I'm conscious of when I have cold symptoms, that when I have these cold symptoms, I'm not going to go give them to other or try to minimize it. It's just being a little cough or a little sneeze because I want to go to work so bad or I want to go to this event so bad that I'm willing to put others at risk. And this is where we have to take time to say, you know what? How do we be kind to others? How do we take care of ourselves and take care of others? How do we take care of the country? And when I'm saying take care of the country, we have to realize that the stability of the country really lies on individuals. And if nobody's healthy and if nobody is able to practice these measures, then we're still continuing to put each other at risk. So when we look at the numbers and we look to where we are right now, we have to ask ourselves, how much are we preventing those numbers from continuing to rise, or how much are we contributing to those numbers continuing to rise? So, Santita, when we constantly talk about this bad strain or we talk about a breakthrough virus, respiratory illnesses have been here even before I was born. But I'm talking about like 1800s. Some of them even before that. We had bubonic plagues back in the day. So this is nothing new. So we have to stop assuming that bugs just came around, that this one is just an issue for individuals, regardless of how it got here. You'd be surprised. I hear so many issues about how it got here, the conspiracy theories about like it, but whatever. However you think it got here, whatever you think it is, just understand you have to stay ready so you don't have to get ready.
Well, it's
That's
here.
my only message to anyone.
Well, the thing is, it's here. And you know what? You have a real thing about wearing our masks in a sanitary way, because there are so many mistakes that we make with these masks. These last 4 minutes belong to you.
So with your mask, I want to say, because there are a lot of individuals that will say, oh my gosh, like I'm so mad this person is not wearing a mask. And there's this notion that because you are wearing a mask that you are saved. I want you to stop thinking through that mindset and say to yourself, if I am not wearing or handling my mask correctly, I am still putting myself at risk. This is something that is talked about constantly, but this is something that people may not necessarily be doing. So when I tell people, please stop grabbing your mask from the front when you're taking it off, because you don't know the germs that are on the front of the mask. When I tell individuals also, remove it from ear to ear so you're not touching the front of the mask. When I'm saying that, make sure that you are wearing it for only the appropriate intervals of time, meaning that if you know you have sneezed or coughed into that mask, just because it's dry and it doesn't look contaminated, don't put it on when it dries again. Don't put it on a couple of days later. There are millions and millions of bacteria that are harboring inside of those masks. If you are a mouth breather and you say, I'm going to wait for it to dry, I want you to think about the whole notion of how mildew and mold develops when we're talking about moist environments. So think about the germs you do not see and potentially what is happening. And so I want you to keep that in mind as well. When we talk about, let's say, hand hygiene, if you're not cleaning your hands before you put your mask on your face, your mask is already contaminated before you're even expecting it to save you, because now you already have germs that are on the outside of it. So I just want people to think about those things. Wearing a mask on your chin or neck is not sanitary. Individuals are going to talk, and they're going to talk, and droplets can potentially fall directly into those areas. And when you go to pull that mask back up, you're pulling the inside contents right back to your nose and your mouth. And so when I say this, because I see a lot of individuals that may wear them on their chin. Let's say if you take it up a level and you say, oh, well, I got my mouth covered, but my nose not covered because I can't breathe. All of your nose, your nasal droplets are now falling on the outside of your mask anyway. So now, even when you pull that mask back up or you touch it inappropriately, you've now taken everything from your hand, transferred it to the front of your mask, and you're likely a spreader of your germs into the environment. And we just hope that they're not COVID germs, but there is that potential that in itself could very well exist. So I just want to remind people, when we are talking about PPE, quote unquote, when we're talking about gloves, which is something I don't recommend because most people consciously don't know how to handle them. When we're talking about anything, just be conscious of what we're doing. And Santita, this topic is not on masks, but I have to bring this up because we're coming up towards the holidays. If you are at a Thanksgiving event and they have it buffet style, pay attention to what's happening with that spoon. I've seen so many times where the silverware ends up directly on the dish. If you are at a party, think about all the people whose hands touched that handle, and now that handle is laying right over in the rice after everybody's hands have touched it. So I want you to think about that consciously and how that happens, because I see that happen a lot, where there's an assembly line and everybody has to touch it. Or think about after, let's say you're at an event with some hot dogs or something that's a finger food. You touch the handle to grab your hot dog bun, and now instead of you cleaning your hands before you actually put the hot dog in there, because you got to open the bun up, you're touching it. You're touching your bun as if that handle was already clean, when not everyone cleans their hands.
Dr. Shanina Knight, and she'll be back with us on Monday, talking about a lot of little things that we can miss because we're not conscious and we've not been taught. We thank you so much for your work, Dr. Shanina Knight, an infection preventionist. She'll be back with us again on Monday to help us to get through these holidays and to really get through life from day to day. Ahmaud Arbery, Kyle Rittenhouse, what do you think about these cases, everybody? What do you think about the cases? Who is going to walk? Will the McMichaels and the Bryans and Kyle Rittenhouse, will they walk? More of the Santita Jackson Show. Call me at 773-763-9278. Back in just a minute. Ooh. Wow. You know what? You are a lot. Okay? Girl. Woo. You are a lot, Shanita. But thank you. Thank you. Like, every time you say something, I'm like, oh my gosh. Oh, wow. This is just a lot. Whoo, whoo, whoo. You want to stay with us a while and listen to what we're going to talk about these cases?
Yeah. So I'm gonna listen in for a little bit. I'm gonna put you on mute, but I don't lie. I've actually been listening in for the last couple of days. I just ain't got kicked off. So I have. And it's, I mean, really, it's been some really good insight in regards to like the, I would say the comparisons of the cases. And I really feel like more people need to understand that and hear that, because sometimes we be thinking, we have all of the information, but the way that you have had like the panelists break down the actual cases, talk, even the differences between going to look for trouble versus trouble finding you, and having to go and travel different states. It's all of these things that have been really making a heck of a case that I've had a great appreciation for, because, I don't know. I just don't think media can do it like y'all do it. Or mainstream media can't do it like y'all do it, because these details that everybody should hear.
Well, you know what? They don't want to do it, and I got it. I'm just saying, that's how we're going to do it here. How about that?
Right.
That's how we're going to do it here.
Attorneys Hoffler and Patillo are both on the line.
So, yes, I'll be listening in. I'm going on mute in a minute when it's time.
Well, you can say hello to... You can say hello to Attorney Hoffler and to Attorney Patillo. You can say hello to them right now.
Absolutely.
This is Dr. Knighton, Dr. Shanita Knighton, who just frightened the bejesus out of everybody. What we doing with these?
Good morning.
With these masks, girl.
Hey.
Hey. Coming back right now.
Stand by. We're coming up. Stand by. We're coming up.
Can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am breathing.
I want to hey, welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. I'm Santita Jackson. It's a joy to be with you today. Let's talk about the Ahmaud Arbery and the McMichael Bryan cases. These are the men who murdered Ahmaud Arbery. I think we need to get this right. Matt, let's play that video, that audio clip that I wanted to hear from the Rittenhouse case.
I don't know. Hope the Asian food isn't coming. Isn't on one of those boats in Long Beach Harbor.
Now, that is the judge in the Kyle Rittenhouse case. That's right. Who made this awful joke. It was really offensive about the Asian community. Kenosha County Circuit Court Judge Bruce Schroeder. He said, "I hope the Asian food isn't coming. Isn't on one of those boats from Long Beach Harbor." Wow, it was a so-called off-color joke. But this is the man who is overseeing the Kyle Rittenhouse case, the man who refuses to call the people who were shot victims. They are, in his court, they are looters, they are arsonists, they are rioters. So what do you think about all of this? I mean, what does that make you think about the case? I mean, when you hear the judge make that kind of joke in open court, what do you think about the defense resting? This has all happened so quickly. I mean, they impanel the jury in 5 seconds in this case, and we have had quite the week, and it's almost over. The closing arguments will be made on Monday. So what do you think? What do you think? And how protected do you think the jurors are from these conversations that we're having out here, or the conversations that they're hearing where they live? Got a lot to talk about. I want you to call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763 WCPT. You can text me at that number as well. And everybody, I want you to like and share on the Santita Jackson and Friends page on Facebook, and like and subscribe on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Everybody who's watching today, please like and share. Find 5 people in your network, okay, that you can share this show with. Please do. We just heard from Dr. Shanita Knighton before. She's holding and listening. She said, the details of this case, I've not heard anyplace else but here. But you can hear Attorney C.K. Hoffler break it down on Court TV. She's been there throughout the week doing a magnificent job. She's with us today, of course. Legal Q&A with C.K. every Wednesday at 7 a.m. Central Standard Time. And of course, she's on WAOK along with Attorney Robert Patillo. She's on Tuesdays at 11 Eastern Standard Time. And he, of course, is from 1 to 4 every Sunday Eastern Standard Time. He's the Southeastern Regional Director of Rainbow Push, and she is its chair. Let me start with you, Attorney C.K. Hoffler, and then coming to you, Robert Patillo. Whew, I don't even know where to begin. Let's start with the judge in the Rittenhouse case, this off-color joke that he felt very comfortable making, CK. What does that say? Or does it say nothing at all?
Well, good morning, Santita, and good morning to everyone listening. And what does it say? Just as we've been predicting all week, this trial has been surrounded with chaos, pandemonium, bias, and a mess, quite frankly. And it's a tragedy because at loss in all of this is the fact that 2 men were killed and another injured severely. And also, we have to remember that the protests on that day were as a result of the shooting of Jacob Blake in Kenosha. So the severity and the seriousness of the crimes levied against Kyle Rittenhouse are lost in the shuffle, because you have a judge who is making inappropriate jokes, a judge who has clearly demonstrated his frustration with the prosecution, and in my impression, more biased leanings in favor of the prosecution. You have the prosecution that is doing what it's doing, but in my humble impression, there were failed attempts at making points and putting the case together. What you have to do when you have the burden of proof, as the prosecution does have, you have to simplify a case, hit the high point, and keep it moving. Make sure that every single witness, every question asked, lines up and goes towards your theme of the case. And the theme in this case should be very simple. This young man shot and killed and murdered 2 people and injured a 3rd person. Period. End of discussion. That's your theme. And everything should fall in place. All of the other side, the side shows are not relevant. And so the reason why the defense is resting is, quite frankly, they utilize the witnesses of the prosecution to make their case in cross-examination. And I think they've been quite effective. And then the show put on when Kyle Rittenhouse testified. And again, he's an 18-year-old boy. So he testified, and he was well coached, well trained, and he delivered what he needed to deliver. But what's disappointing is that the officer of the court, the judge presiding over this trial, would conduct himself in that way, which I think, given the dynamics of this case, that's just completely ill-advised, period, ever. But certainly when you have a case like this where so much is at stake, it's high profile, much is riding on this, and there's messaging about our country, about our communities that are riding on this, you can ill afford to joke like that and to certainly take out any animus in the courtroom. That's very serious. So, Santita, this is very, very disappointing, sad, and I could use stronger words, but I'll leave it at that. And that's how I would set the table for the Kyle Rittenhouse case. But you gotta say how disappointing it is to consistently hear from the defense in the Ahmaud Arbery case, and now asking that no Black ministers go into the courtroom, and wrongfully accusing your father, Santita, Reverend Jackson, of being in the courtroom.
He hasn't been there.
Not there on Monday.
He hasn't been there yet. Not saying that he can't go, won't go.
Been there yet. Right, absolutely. But all of that is so completely wrong and bad. But there's so many other things that are happening also in the Ahmaud and the murder trial involving the McMichaels and Mr. Bryan surrounding the murder of Ahmaud Arbery. But I think that case is ongoing, whereas we're probably going to get a verdict soon in the Kyle Rittenhouse case.
Well, what do you think, Robert Patillo? And I want you all to call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. Should we brace ourselves for an acquittal? I want to know what your thoughts are. What are you seeing? Both of these cases are proceeding in very interesting ways. You've got the defense, a member of one of the defense teams in the Ahmaud Arbery case, who said, hey, these black preachers, okay, we got Reverend Sharpton in here, but this is too much. And, please, Jesse Jackson, don't come now. I mean, wow. Are they, is he saying that about priests too, and imams and rabbis? Maybe.
I don't know. He made it very clear that it's only black ministers that he has an issue with. So I guess you can have all the white ministers you want, maybe all the Jesuits that you want in there, so on and so forth. But just no more black ministers. That's the issue. I'm hoping that these cases are laying bare the inequities in the criminal justice system for the public. These are things that we see all the time, but particularly practicing in Georgia. A lot of people don't realize that when you're a defense lawyer in particular, you're driving around to different counties in the state every single day, and you're seeing the differences in the way the court is proceeded, let's say in Fulton County, Georgia, where Atlanta is located, versus Glenn County, Georgia, where the McMichael's trial is taking place. And that the local prejudices exist, and that the judge, who is theoretically supposed to be a neutral arbiter calling balls and a strike, simply executing the law, has a tremendous amount of power. And there is a revolving door between the prosecution desk and the bench, because they very often later on run for and become judges in these jurisdictions. They have an amazing amount of power as to what evidence comes in, how you shape the argument. I don't think I'm the only person who's ever been in trial and you felt as if you are arguing against both the state and the judge, who sometimes hops in to be co-counsel for the state, and they feel the prosecution isn't doing a sufficient job and attempting to secure a conviction. And then also in cases such as this, hopping in as co-counsel for the defense when they think they're not doing a sufficient job. I don't quite understand why the judge did not make a comment or sanction that lawyer for saying they don't want any more black ministers or black preachers in the court, particularly given the public nature of this case and the amount of national attention coming down the lines. But for both that defense lawyer and the judge in the Rittenhouse case, the fact that they would say these things when they know the entire nation is watching and that the trials are being televised, imagine what they say when it's closed doors. Imagine when it's just just an empty courtroom with them and the defense counsel and a person who's about to go on trial. Imagine what they say in chambers when they're just meeting behind closed doors just among the judges, and that's what you say in public. So we're going to have to start making a push towards concentrating on many of these judicial elections nationwide, and concentrating on who we elect to be the elected prosecutor in the jurisdiction, because we pay a lot of attention to the presidential race, to the gubernatorial race, to the Senate race, to the congressional race, mayoral elections, those things. But then we get to the end of that ballot and you get to those judicial races, often people start dropping off and just marking any names, and we are now seeing how important it is to really focus on those races, because at the end of the day, they decide very much what happens in the criminal justice system. In the Rittenhouse case in particular, we have seen one of the most incompetent prosecutions that I think anybody can see. You can look up the Wisconsin statute. I think it's 939.48. Particularly Section 2. And there's various exceptions in there to the state self-defense law that the prosecution really has not brought up. For example, subsection 2, it says that if an individual provokes the attack, they can no longer claim self-defense. It's written right there in black and white. A provocative act under state law includes brandishing a weapon. So you cannot brandish an AR-15 at a group of people and then say, they tried to chase me down and take my AR-15. The prosecution allowed exactly that evidence to come in and exactly that argument to be made. For the individual who was shot by Rittenhouse but survived, survived. The defense made a big deal about him grabbing Rittenhouse's AR-15. That is what the law says you're supposed to do. If somebody is an active shooter and you're trying to protect the lives of other individuals, you should try to get the gun away from them. And the defense has now twisted that and used that as part of Rittenhouse's defense because the prosecution has done a horrible job of explaining exactly what their theory of the case is and exactly what the law is to the jury. You cannot claim self-defense in Wisconsin if you are breaking any law. So you can't jaywalk and claim self-defense. You can't spit on the sidewalk and claim self-defense. Rittenhouse was violating curfew. You have to establish that you had a right to be in the place that you were at. He had no right to be there because he shouldn't have been out after curfew and therefore cannot avail himself of self-defense. Prosecution hasn't brought that up. You have to be in legal possession of the firearm. He was not in legal possession of the firearm because under Wisconsin law, you cannot openly carry a long rifle. Prosecution has not brought those things up. It's been such an incompetently prosecuted case that is causing many to wonder whether or not these prosecutors even wanted a conviction. And you never want to have the public doubt the integrity of the criminal justice system, and that is what is happening in these trials.
But the fact is, CK, we do. We do doubt the integrity of the system because of what he just outlined. You know, these are not missed opportunities. This has been overlooked. I mean, the judge himself threw out a curfew violation, a bail violation. He said, no, okay, wait a minute. You didn't inform the court that you changed your address? We'll throw that out. Are you serious? If you don't tell me that you've changed your address, that means I cannot find you, CK. What is that? I want everyone to answer my Twitter poll question. In both of these cases, will the McMichaels and Mr. Bryan in the Arbery case and Kyle Rittenhouse in his murder case, will they go free? I know I asked a similar question yesterday, but I want to know in both of these cases, in the Ahmaud Arbery case and in the Kyle Rittenhouse case, will these people go free? CK, what makes you question the integrity of the system?
Well, it does. And I would say before I leave that in the Kyle Rittenhouse case, I think he's going to be acquitted across the board. In the McMichaels case and the Bryan, why? Because because I don't think that the prosecution has carried its burden. The state has not carried its burden. It's just plain and simple. And the defense has done what the defense is supposed to do, which is poke holes and create reasonable doubt. They've done that, in my humble impression. It's not over yet. I don't know much about this jury because when you pick a jury for a day, there's not much to know. So that's what I feel in the Kyle Rittenhouse case. In the McMichaels case and the Bryan case, I think that Mr. Bryan will likely be acquitted, and there's a strong likelihood that the McMichaels will be acquitted on some charges at a minimum and possibly walk free.
Wow. What will be the fallout? Do you think there will be any political fallout, CK, before you go?
There will be political, yes, there will be political fallout across the board, not just in this country, but around the world. Because in both of these cases, which basically center around, in the first case, the Ahmaud Arbery murder, the murder of a black man. Everything from the process of voir dire, the judge's comments about recognition that there's discrimination, racial animus, all of that is going to create a dynamic for political outcry and fallout around the world. With the Kyle Rittenhouse case, the ramifications of an acquittal will just mean that it's okay now, understand me, in this country, for anyone who feels some kind of way about protesting to go with an assault weapon and shoot as many people as you can, especially if you're young. Get a young person to do that. Train young people, because then they will follow potentially the same path as Kyle Rittenhouse. It's a travesty. I said from the beginning we need to watch these cases because of the political ramifications, because of the legal ramifications, and because of what they say about this country and the status of jurisprudence. It is very tragic and it's very sad, and we have a lot of work to do. A lot of work.
So says the former president. I know you're about to go. Where can we catch you today?
Well, I'm in New York. I'm at a summit for Lexus Nexus with a number of students who are fellows of Lexus Nexus, who have conducted studies on eliminating systemic racism in the legal system. And I'm the keynote speaker today. I'm going to be talking to some of these young leaders who are doing amazing things in technology. African-American students, all of the students are from HBCU law school. Phenomenal.
Amen.
So this is, again, we've got to continue to fight and train the next set of leaders because we cannot give up. This will be a setback for sure, but a setback is only preparation for a strong comeback.
Amen. And you know what? For me, it's a revelation because it will help inspire this new generation to fight and to look back at the people who have been fighting and why Reverend Jackson is still fighting at 80. Reverend Sharpton is almost 70, believe it or not. He looks fantastic, but he just celebrated his 67th birthday. Okay, these are not kids. So now the question is, what are you going to do? Call us at 773-763-9278. We're saying goodbye to attorney C.K. Hoffler for now, but Robert Patillo is going to be with us answering your questions and giving us commentary. We've got Earl from Hyde Park. Earl, what's on your mind today?
Beautiful conversation there, Santita.
Wonderful hearing your voice.
And the best of wishes to you, your family and your father especially.
Thank you.
I'm glad to hear that your mother and father are doing better.
Thank you.
COVID thing. What is on my mind today is that historically speaking, the likelihood of both trials finding some kind of acquittal is in the favor of the defendants. I would guess that the case in Georgia, probably because of the fact that the young man was unarmed, might lead to some kind of conviction, but I don't think it would be one of the maximum type of sentences that the case would warrant. So, unfortunately, we still have a long way to go in our judicial system. We have a long way to go in convincing black people to vote and people of minority to vote and more progressive people to vote. That's the only way we can change the system, by getting elected officials in places and then judges that will see a more progressive point of view and lead the country into a better place. So that's how I wanted to say.
Well, you said a whole lot. But I tell you what, I think certainly the onus is on those of us who need to register and vote and get involved in the process and to pay attention when you're called to jury duty. But Robert Patillo, I think we have to put the onus on the legal system. We see in these two cases, we see a lot of space when the defense lawyer stands up and says, even though the judge cut him off, Lorraine, I hear you. Lorraine said, let's be very accurate. The judge cut the defense attorney off when he said, look, there are too many black preachers up in here. We had Reverend Sharpton, but we don't need anybody else. We certainly don't need Reverend Jesse Jackson coming in here. We don't need this. There is a comfort that they have in saying the things that they say. There's a comfort that the judge in the Kyle Rittenhouse case has in making an anti-Asian joke. I mean, there's a comfort here. There's something which helps me to say, which leads me to believe, no, this is not a subjective, corruption-free system. It's not. It's human. So all of our stuff is going to be in it. And I think that we need to root it out. Should someone say something should something be said about the judge who made the anti-Asian joke yesterday? Should defense counsel, should they be censured in some way? I mean, what can happen here?
Well, the problem is that nothing can happen until the next election. So even the judge did cut off the individual or the defense lawyer who was saying they didn't want Jesse Jackson down there. But compare him cutting him off to the admonishment that the judge in the Rittenhouse trial gave to that prosecutor. Because I would think that if somebody stands up in my courtroom and starts saying there wasn't no more black people up in here bringing attention, I don't want Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson in here, that seems like they should probably get yelled at a little bit more substantially than simply cutting them off at that point in time. At least to save your own tail, if you thought that there was going to be issues with you going forward. as that judge. And as I said, judicial elections are the next battleground in this fight for rights. We're going to have to start getting the right people on these benches, whether they be black, white, Asian, or anything else. We want you to be not racist and fair-minded.
Fair-minded.
That's all we're really asking for.
Because let me tell you, thank you.
And be fair.
Hold on, because I think we need to emphasize that, because having Clarence Thomas on the Supreme Court doesn't give me any comfort. And it's not because he's a black person who has turned his back on his experiences, having lived on the downside of advantage, having been born under the boot. No. That's it. But it's not just because he's black. One of the things I love about former Congressman Dennis Kucinich is that he was homeless and lived in a car with his mother, father, and many siblings, and he remembered it. And he behaved that way as mayor of Cleveland, lost his seat fighting the utility companies. He actually, as a congressman, pushed laws that would advantage all of us. I am not going to stand for a black person, a black face in a high place who does nothing for everybody. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. But you know what? We have to engage in political education as these candidates come to our churches and to our sorority and fraternity meetings and on and on and on, and just come and campaign. We need to make sure that these judges campaign Robert Patillo, because we never see them. We just see them on the ballot, and we just mark it. You don't even know who you're voting for. You have no idea. Continue to call me at 773. Call Robert Patillo and I on the Santita Jackson Show at 773-763-9278. We don't know who the judges are, Robert. We have no idea, and they don't have to campaign, Robert. They really don't.
You will be amazed that it's a political nerds like me. I want you to do something. Go look up your state secretary's state records for the last election and go see how many votes it took to elect some of your local judges. We here in Fulton County in Atlanta, we've had some judges on the bench who got 1,400 votes, 1,100 votes, 1,500 votes to be a Superior Court judge in Fulton County, Georgia, making these decisions, heading up these trials. I mean, less people than are at a nightclub on some weekends. That's all that it takes to win some of these elections, because as people vote in for the offices that campaign to them. So you vote for president, you vote for Senate, Congress, governor, congressperson, mayor. Maybe you'll get down to city council. You might get to school board, and then you're ready. The parking meter is running outside, so you're just hitting buttons towards the end. You're just marking boxes and sitting in, if you even mark those boxes. You're picking who has the pretty name, who has incumbent next to their name. Their name's Johnson, my name's Johnson. I'm going to vote for them. Those sorts of things. And that's how you still have these 75-year-old neo-Confederates on the bench, because they've just been there so long. People keep voting for them, and we're not really challenging them. Also, there's a duty, and this is for the black lawyers who are listening. There's a duty to run for these seats. The job of a Superior Court judge in Georgia, for example, it sucks. Nobody wants to do it. It is boring, it is long, it is methodical, it is tedious. For every one of these big TV trials that you see, that might happen once a year. If that. The rest of the time, you're just going into court first thing in the morning and reading off names on a calendar and doing scheduling. That is the majority of what court is. And defense lawyers, and particularly young African-American defense lawyers, don't feel like doing it. And I've told my wife for years, ain't no way in hell I would do it. But now I need to rethink it.
You need to rethink
it. I think many of us need to rethink it, because if you have more of us on those benches,
30 seconds.
People who are fair-minded, then you can get better judgments and better decisions out of them. And as I said, it's not about a race issue. I would much rather go into court and have Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the bench than Clarence Thomas. So it's about having the type of people who understand what the law is and that they have a role as calling balls and strikes and not being an active participant in it.
Absolutely.
Particularly the judge in the Rittenhour case clearly is taking his 15 minutes of fame and trying to show out for the cameras. You know more about what the judge has said in this case than what any individual witness has said in the case.
Stay right there, everybody. Attorney Robert Patillo, everybody, on the Santita Jackson Show, 773-763-9278. Let's talk about the Ahmaud Arbery cases and the McMichael and Bryan cases. Yeah, let's talk about that on the Santita Jackson Show. Back in a minute. Oh, you know what? But I tell you what, Robert, and we're on Facebook Live now, just so that you know, you are now seeing this stuff in full effect. You know, I think it's good for people to know.
And it's one of those things where us lawyers have been telling people for years, but until people see it, I can't even imagine how many times I've come home from court and just like my wife is sitting at the table, I'm just like lay my head on the kitchen table and just try to explain to her what's going on. But now everyone is getting to see it because it's so stark and it happens so much. And every lawyer, I think, has war stories about this. Everybody, and if we can get the public support behind us to elect better prosecutors, to elect better judges, to elect better attorney generals for the state, it really will change the outcome. The case of the killing of Ahmaud Arbery with the McMichaels, the prosecution put on a great case. But during jury selection, they allowed on a nearly all-white jury. So what the case they put on may or may not matter. The case may have been won and lost during jury selection. In the Rittenhour case, we don't know really the composition of the jury, but the prosecution is as if they just got out of a high school mock trial class, the way they proceeded with the case. And it's been a little bit frightening that the people can be distinct.
Miss Wells is on the line.
It comes down to basically a game case. We haven't heard that really articulated in the media, particularly in the mainstream corporate media, even on the quote-unquote progressive side. They've gotten obsessed with this thing of calling the judge a white supremacist. I don't understand the white supremacy standpoint when you got white people killing white people. Everybody in the case is white. But they haven't concentrated on the fact that you have a prosecution that seems as if they're throwing the case, and nobody wants to have that impression that you have prosecutors who simply could have decided, I don't really want to put this kid in jail, so I'll just put on a perfunctory case and let the jury decide, and then just say I gave it my good old college try, and that's what it looks like. So we have to take these things seriously, not get distracted by the political catnip out there, and look at what's really going on. There have been multiple things the prosecution could have concentrated on, multiple things in the cross-examination they could have called him on. Where are the rest of the witnesses? There were hundreds, if not thousands, of people at this protest, probably dozens of people who witnessed the shootings take place. Where are they at? We're getting drone footage from Drew Hernandez, who's actually a friend of mine. I was very surprised to see on the stand. We debate all the time on conservative TV. You get drone footage from him, but where are the first-hand accounts from the people who were there to say what Kyle Rittenhouse did to make those people chase him down? Why aren't those witnesses being called? Why is there literally like a couple witnesses in a case that had hundreds of witnesses see what took place? Where's the officers who were handing out bottles of water to him beforehand? Where are the officers who let him go after he's tried to surrender with the gun? Where's his mom at? Why wasn't she called to take the stand?
Well, wait a minute. Let me ask you this. Hold on. Has it been established? I mean, and that is it, because I keep trying to find it again. And I can't. And so it's making me uncomfortable. It always makes me uncomfortable. Did she drive him to Kenosha, or did he drive himself, or did someone else drive him? Has that been?
It hasn't been established.
Okay, thank you, because I don't feel comfortable stating that when it's not been established.
Well, that's part of the problem, that the prosecution, you're supposed to set the stage. You're supposed to create a mental image. Before there were cameras everywhere, you had to be a storyteller as a trial attorney. And they haven't set the stage for exactly what happened. They haven't talked about the gun. Where did you get it? How long did you have it? Why was it loaded? Those sorts of things. They never established these things. The jury has just as many questions in their mind as you do. And if a jury has questions in their mind, they're not going to convict somebody on questions.
I mean, this is a problem. It's a problem. Well, you know what? I just think that this is, you have lies of omission and lies of commission. And I just cannot believe that all of these mistakes have been made. I don't believe that. I think there is a design. I really do, everybody. Call me what you will. I know when going to jail is really is a political process. Trust me, I know this. And some people, you are clear when people want you to go to prison, and you are clear when you are being saved from prison and prosecution and persecution. Okay? So there's some people. Adam Clayton Powell didn't have to go to jail. Didn't have to be expelled from Congress. That was a plan. He was too powerful. Black schools were absolutely, and black people got more money for our education when he was in Congress and headed up his committee. Check the facts, Robert. You know it's true. They wanted to be done with him, be rid of him. You got to understand that this is the politics of this, which is why it's so important for us to understand why lawyers now have an obligation to, you've got to become a judge. You need to become a prosecutor. You need to get in, you need to know the system, because one thing I will say about these people, they know the system and they work the system. They know the system, they work the system. What are you going to do? You can't just complain about the system. You have to know it, and you have to decide that you're going to get in it so that everybody else can win in it. It's important, and I'm so glad that you're walking us through all of these pieces. Sending you much love, Abraham. Mwah. Now he's claiming my parents as his
30
in-laws.
seconds.
Lovey. My mother's going to love that. Love it. Chaparral, you there?
Yes, ma'am, I am here.
I know you want to make a
I'm
comment.
right now, Santita, booking Robert plane tickets to Kenosha, because baby, he needs to be closing arguments
10 seconds.
on Monday.
Stand by.
It's gonna break loose, because I promise you.
Stand by. Stand by, crazy woman. Stand by.
Let's hope for 1 o'clock. I don't know. Hope the Asian food isn't coming. Isn't on one of those boats in Long Beach Harbor.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Jackson Show.
And hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It is Friday, November 12th, 2021. I'm Santita Jackson, coming to you from WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station based here in Chicago, and AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota, in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Sending all my love to all my brothers and sisters to the north, and please, all of my morning stars on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe, and everybody share the show. Everybody who's on the Santita Jackson and Friends page, all my morning stars, everybody find 5 people, at least one person in your network, and share the show. Just share it, just share it, just share it. Got a lot of great information that we're getting to you on the Santita Jackson Show. We're talking about the Ahmaud Arbery and, well, really the McMichael and Brian murder cases. They are accused of the murder of Ahmaud Arbery. Will they walk? Please go to my Twitter feed, @SantitaJ, @SantitaJ, and answer the question. I didn't put the Ahmaud Arbery trial in there purposely. No, it's not the Ahmaud Arbery case. We're not trying him. We're trying the McMichaels, father and son, and Travis and Gregory, and William Roddy Bryan. These are the 3 men who are accused of killing Ahmaud Arbery. and Kyle Rittenhouse. Will they go free? That's my question today. Please go to @Santita J and answer those questions. We've got Attorney Robert Patillo, Director of the Southeastern Regional Offices of Rainbow Push. He's based in Atlanta, civil rights attorney, brilliant attorney, and he's been giving us brilliant legal analysis, as had Attorney C.K. Hoffler. She had to go. She's at a conference today giving a keynote and mentoring some of our young lawyers and young lions so that they can learn how to fight too. So let's get right to it. I want you to call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. You can text me at that number as well. Let's get a few of these headlines out the way so we can get right back to the calls and all of your comments, everybody, at 773-763-9278. Friday, November 12th, 2021. In Chicago, it's going to be rainy. 43 degrees, that will be the high. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 39 degrees will be the high. Snow mixed with rain. The Dow closed down 158 points. The NASDAQ closed up 81 points. The S&P 500 closed up 2.5 points. Tonight, we're going to have some great basketball. The Timberwolves will be facing off against the Lakers, and the Bulls will be facing off against the Warriors. In hockey, the Golden Knights, well, they were triumphant over the Wild, 3-2. And the Coyotes will be here in Chicago playing Chicago's team. The Dolphins, well, they beat the Ravens 22-10, everybody. So what do you think? What do you think about climate change? This is the last day of the Glasgow Summit, and these 197 countries who are participating are really fighting to come together with an agreement. Will they be able to do that? Well, think of the Maldives. Those islands are about to go underwater. Their prime minister is looking for a place to put all of the citizens of that country. Climate change is real, everybody. Climate change is real. So let's get to Chaparral. Chaparral, what's on your mind today? Because the next headline, of course, is the defense resting in the Kyle Rittenhouse case. And of course, we're watching these cases really begin to move to a close. Wow. We've seen one of the defense attorneys say that he doesn't want any more black preachers in the courtroom, giving comfort and support to the Arbery family. He said, we've had Reverend Sharpton. Oh, we do not want Reverend Jesse Jackson. We'll hear that clip shortly. But you know what? It's holiday time. So let's do something that'll lift our spirits some. Celebrations by us. I promise you, I can tell you on my own experience, this is some of the best food ever. She cooks like the old folks used to cook. That's right, none other than Chaparral Wells. Celebrations by us. What's on your mind, Chaparral? Talk to me today. Well, how can we get this food, these victuals?
Yes, good morning, Santita, and thank you so much for allowing us to come again and talk to your audience. We are definitely taking orders until November 19th for our holiday food, and we ask that anyone who is looking for turkey, dressing, ham, mac and cheese, Cajun pasta, mostaccioli, greens, green beans, whatever it is you need for your holiday season, don't hesitate to give us a call. Give us a call at 708-526-4546. Also, our peach cobbler, our banana pudding, our caramel cakes, our German chocolate cakes. We have everything that you would need to make your holiday season pop and be fabulous. So give us a call at 708-526-4546. Hit us up on Facebook at Celebrations by Us or our website, celebrationsbyus.org, 708-526-4546.
So what's that number again?
708-526-4546.
Celebrationsbyus.org. I know you want to make a comment, Chaparral. Go on.
Yes, I've been listening to Robert, and he has said everything that I wanted to say, because I'm sitting up here as the defense, as Mr. Hernandez was testifying and refusing to answer the question. I was waiting for the prosecutor to say, Judge, can you please instruct the witness to answer the question asked? He let him go on and on and on and on, explaining what he was doing when he was filming, making all of it. The jury heard all of this. And so why didn't he once object to that? And so I agree with Robert that they're trying to throw the case. They're definitely trying to throw the case because they're not doing anything to save the case. And so it's so obvious. And then the bias of the judge, his off-the-cut humor that he considered. I mean, you know, he felt so safe. He's on national TV, and he felt safe to make this Asian joke. But he's been doing that the entire trial. And so my thing is that we have a lot of things that we are noticing that are actually coming into this trial that is going to set precedent that it's going to be open season on Black folks and white folks, and it's going to be vigilante justice from now on in America, because they're going to give them grounds to do whatever it is that they want to do to us. And what's surprising, like Robert brought all the Wisconsin laws. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to see if I can book Robert a ticket to get here by Monday, because they need some help. They need some serious help.
I know. You know what they need? Hold on. These people know the law, Robert and Chaparral. They know the law. There is, to me, the intention. We have to look at intention, as uncomfortable as that makes us. And even if I'm wrong, then prove me wrong, everybody. Y'all prove me wrong. That's what I need you to do. Because what you're doing is making us doubt the integrity of the legal system in these cases. So we can only imagine what happens when there is no light on all of these kids who get shuffled through the system as children. Because we have the adultification of Black children and brown children. And we have the babyfication of a boy, quite frankly, because that is what Kyle Rittenhouse was at 17. That's what he was last year, which is why you need to look at his parents and how he was raised. Who raised him? How was he raised? You mean to tell me when you got home and you found out that your son killed 2 people? Well, see, I want to know, when you got home, you found out he killed children, was she upset with you, or did she applaud you? I want to know. See, because I want to know the kind of house you came from, since we're into dissecting everybody's home, okay? That's what we do. I want to know. So call me at 773-763-9278. You were saying, Chaparral, before you go?
I was saying that his mom was on Hannity the other day crying, talking about she thought her son was going to die. And I'm sitting up here like, why the hell did you let him go? What mama will let her son go into a riotous situation?
I don't know.
She knew exactly what he was headed into. She knew that there may be danger. No mom is going to put their child in danger and risk their lives. It doesn't make sense. But she knew that he had this rifle. She knew that he knew how to shoot. And so she knew that if he had to defend himself, he would. But she knew that he was cocky as well.
Well, she didn't know. You don't know if she talked him up. Because you don't know if she talked what the dinner conversation, Chaparral, the dinner conversation, how she might have ginned this boy up. Because this is when you are under the influence of your parents. You're not coming up with this stuff yourself. You're not.
Yeah.
Not at 17.
Yeah.
No.
And this was everyday conversation. She let him in the bars. I mean, what parent? I mean, her. I'm sitting up here like, you are letting your child in a bar at 17. He's sitting up here drinking beer with the Proud Boys. These are his mentors.
Was he drinking beer? Do we know that?
Really saying this? And this is the part with the prosecution. I haven't seen Huber's family, haven't seen Rosenbaum's family. They haven't talked about the impact of losing these folks, have cost on their lives. They should have been paraded out every day. Where is Huber's family?
I don't know. They haven't been brought forward. They haven't been brought forward. Because I know what I know about Mr. Rosenbaum's story is heartbreaking. He had mental health struggles. He had bipolar disorder. He wasn't even there to join the Black Lives Matter protest. That's not what he was there for. Oh, Robert Patillo, before we go to the callers, your thoughts help to set the table for those who are joining us in this second hour.
Well, I think it's crucial to understand that the case, I want anybody to think to themselves, what is the prosecution's theory of the case? As in, what are they trying to prove? Because what he's charged with does not require what's called mens rea, or mental state, or motive, for example. The prosecution spent a lot of time during their cross-examination and say, well, you intended to kill people. That's not necessary for what they charged him with. All they need to prove is that he did indeed kill people, and that he cannot avail himself of self-defense. Self-defense is what's called an affirmative defense in a state like Wisconsin and most other states, meaning that the defense has to prove self-defense. All the prosecution needs to do is poke holes into his self-defense theory. They didn't even try to do that. Elon Musk has a quote where he says, an idiot tries to perfect that which needs not exist. And that's what the prosecution spent a lot of time doing, trying to perfect an argument that has absolutely no bearing on the case at all. If you really wanted to win this case, the video is there, the dead bodies are there, we all know what happened. So all you would really need to do is prove that he did not actually have the right to self-defense. How do you do this? Well, the video of him being chased down by the first individual that he shot 4 times. Do you think those random people just said, hey, that's Kyle. I don't like Kyle. Let's chase him. Or do you think that he was over there provoking them with his rifle because he thought that he was Superman and part of this group of Proud Boys, and that he had protection, and then he got himself into something he couldn't get out of and got chased down because he was brandishing and threatening people with the rifle? That seemed to make a lot more sense. But the prosecution spent absolutely no time trying to prove that. They spent absolutely no time putting people on the stand to say what happened prior to them to him getting chased. And because of that, the person that he shot 4 times, who was trying to protect the crowd from an armed gunman, will get no justice for himself and for his family. When we talk about the guy who was hitting him with the skateboard, why was he hitting him with a skateboard? Out of all the armed vigilantes there, why did they pick Kyle to beat upside the head with a skateboard? Is it just because they know Kyle and they said, hey, I hate Kyle? Or is it because Kyle was posing an existential threat to everyone who was there to protest, and that they understood that this man understood the only way to protect maybe dozens of people from being killed by this psychopath was to put his life in danger and to try to disarm this individual with whatever means necessary, and was willing to take on this man with an AR-15 with a skateboard. Think about the type of courage it takes to try to disarm an armed gunman who has an assault rifle with a skateboard. And he's going to get no justice because of the prosecution in this case. Mr. Rosenbaum, who was armed, and instead of simply pulling his, we have a colloquial rule in Georgia we call the outcast rule, which is don't pull the thing out unless you plan to bang. As in, you don't pull your gun out and point it at somebody. You pull your gun out and shoot somebody. That is the only time you draw your weapon. And so this Mr. Rosenbaum, who testified on the stand, he pulled out his firearm. He tried to approach Mr. Rittenhouse. He put his hand on the gun to try to disarm him. And then Mr. Rittenhouse shot him and nearly killed him. He will get no justice because the prosecution allowed the defense to take that and twist it into him being the aggressor, into him being the attacker, and Mr. Rittenhouse defending himself. How incompetent do you have to be as a prosecution to allow all those things to happen? And that's when I say people start losing faith in the system, because of like, if I can explain that in 3 minutes on the radio, then why can't the prosecution explain that in 2 days of their case in chief? And this is why people lose faith in the system, and why we have to reform it from the bottom to the top.
Hey, everybody. I want to know what your thoughts are. Andre from Chicago. What's on your mind, Andre?
Hello. Good morning to you, Santita. How you feel today?
It's wonderful hearing your voice. I feel great now that I've heard yours.
That's good. Belated Happy Veterans Day to you and your family.
Blessings to you and yours.
Thank you. I want to start off saying that this thing is wrong on so many fronts. And your guest might disagree with me, but I don't think that Kyle Rittenhouse was entitled to any type of due process because his behavior was wrong on so many fronts. He got an illegal weapon, he's out late at night, and he's hanging with people that contributed to delinquency with these Proud Boys, which they should be sued for cuddling him. And it's just so much.
Well, no, Andre, they did that after after the shooting. That was not, as far as we know. We don't know if they had contact with him before. Okay, I just wanted to. I just want to be.
It's my understanding after he made a comment or was interviewed or whatever, he then went to this bar and took pictures with the Proud Boys.
He did. That's true. I just want to get the order right. Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for your clarity. This judge, this is why I always suggest this here. The system is against you from day one, and I'll tell you why I feel that way. When we have these cases, they go through this extreme process of trying to find a jury that had never heard of this case. In this word, they're looking for idiots, basically. That's what they're looking for, somebody never heard of the case. So then why don't we just fight to go through the same process for a judge? We need to be looking for judges that never heard of these cases, but this judge obviously comes with some bias. This judge has some mental issues. He needs to be evaluated. He has no business sitting on a bench losing his composure like that. I compared the behavior of two judges. I'm looking at this judge and Ahmaud Arbery's case behavior, and I looked at this judge's behavior, and this judge, he's just off his rocker. And that would upset anybody with his behavior. So I say that we need to start the process to rolling and change this system where we look for impartial judges just as hard as we look for impartial jurors to sit on these jurors. And that would change the outcome of these things. Some of the information that I thought this judge was wrong when he say, why could you talk about this guy's behavior and sum him up to be out of control child that was waywardly, that was out doing whatever he felt like he was doing, but the judge wouldn't allow him to ask about his behavior and all that and talk about curfew is not an issue and these different things. He was just so abusive to that prosecutor. And it's wrong. So I think that's what we need to do. Start with change. Make whatever's good for the juror should be good for the judge, because a lot of them are crooked and out there. And this witness, I forget what his name, Hernandez. Well,
from the Daily Caller.
One thing the prosecutor did bring out was the fact that this Hernandez that testified that worked for America, whatever it is, that he was one of these right wingers that came up and he was getting paid by the same people this other man was talking about. This man was supposed to be an excessive force expert, and he wasn't asked not one question about excessive force. Talking about the time and some video and how it's spliced up has nothing to do with excessive force. And that was the whole idea. He was supposed to be there to testify what is excessive force. And Kyle Whitmer used excessive force. Dude, anybody out there know was asked any question concerning the excessive force? Absolutely not. He was asked something about splices on video and the time in the video. That has nothing to do with no excessive force.
Earl, you have broken it down. I mean, let me ask you this, Earl, very quickly. Why have you paid such close attention to these trials?
You talking to me?
Yes, Earl. I want to know.
Yeah, I pay close attention to this. Number one, I'm a black man. I have a son that's 39 years old, and I have 5 grandsons between my son and my daughter. And I watch it because I know if they're young people, they're not going to be as tuned into things as me. So I watch these things, and whenever we together, I tell them about different things. I tell my son, even though he's older, about behavior and how we have to be out here in these streets out here. That's why I watch it, so I can be. How you going to inform somebody if you're not informed?
Well, you know what? I tell you what. What we have to do is being very intentional with our children. I think all parents do. I mean, I don't have any children, but I think that all of these children belong to us.
You got some children.
No, I do not.
They might not be biological, but all the hearts you done touch, you got some kids somewhere.
Well, bless your heart. But I just do establish I've not given birth. And I haven't adopted either. But I tell you what, you're right, and they are children of my heart. And one of the things that we have to do, and I think the Black experience, Robert, in the United States, and just when we really examine it, has been so painful. There's a lot that we don't impart to our children. There's a lot that we don't know. But my Jewish brothers and sisters, my friends who are in their 30s and 40s, let alone their 50s, the Holocaust is as real to them as it was to their grandparents and great-grandparents. And we have to be that intentional. Slavery is not something that you should shun. You're not a victim of slavery. We survived it. We overcame. Booker T. Washington wrote the book Up From Slavery. Oh, we're a mighty people. And America's a mighty nation because you know what? It made a mistake, and it's with our assistance helped to correct it. We haven't finished the work. This is something that goes on. You pass the baton from generation to generation, and you have to remain vigilant so that you do not go back into the error of your previous ways. Got to think about this, everybody. Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. Stay right there, or we'll talk on Facebook Live on the other side during the break. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show.
You can change the world.
Mr. Earl, what do you want to say to Attorney Patillo and I?
Is it okay if I ask another question?
Of course, please, because I've very quickly before we come back up.
Okay, well, I just want to close with this here. You know, they always holding our black parents up under the spotlight and how we raise our kids. Well, from what I can see, these white parents out here teaching their kids to be anarchists. They teaching them to be insurrectionists, and they definitely teaching them to be disobedient toward the laws, teaching that they don't have to obey the laws that we have to follow out here. So black parents out there, you know, feel good about yourself. We're not perfect, but we're not evil either. We don't teach our kids to go down to a Capitol. We don't let our kids run around at night like that and intentionally do stuff like this. We don't let our kids hang out with the Proud Boys. So be proud. And that's all I want to say today.
And look, and play the game by one set of rules. I'm with you. I am with you. I mean, and you know, quite frankly, whenever people are in error, you need to examine the errors of their ways so that they can be corrected. And one of the dangers of this moment, Earl and Robert, is this. Mr. Earl and Robert, you know what we're not doing here? We're not examining the home that Kyle Rittenhouse came from. We're not examining the McMichael family. This is a father and son duo who killed a man. Are you serious?
Exactly. Exactly.
This is saying a whole lot to me about something deep in the culture, and you need to look at that so that you can get well. But you need to first understand that you're a little crazy. I want to open up with Matt. I want to open up, do a cold open. Have Paul show you how to make the cold open on that the clip from the lawyer, please.
34 minutes. Okay, copy that.
Thank you so much. So, Robert, what are you hearing, hon?
Well, you know, I think a big chunk of it is going to have to be people understanding how the system works. The black folk, in large part, teach their kids to be afraid of the system as opposed to teaching them how to understand the system. And so you can't understand something that you fear. Once you understand it, then you know how to operate it. You know how to navigate your way through it. You know how to get around it better. I'll give you an example. My little nephew got in trouble a few weeks ago. He was 13 years old, got in trouble in school. So they sent him to juvie. And so most, I'll tell you off here, it's a whole nother thing. But he got in trouble and got himself sent to juvie. And what the prosecution in the case wanted to do was put him in custody for 6 months. And so because he has an uncle who's a lawyer, I know how to navigate the system. And so all he had to do was go do some community service instead and kept his record clean. Because we're not afraid of the system because we understand the system. So for many young black boys in particular, they end up with a future that is messed up, not because of what they did, but because of not knowing how to navigate their way through what they did and come out better on the other side. So when we're looking at Kyle Rittenhouse, who's only a couple years older than my nephew, he's going to end up coming out in a better situation after killing 2 people.
30 seconds.
Black boys get after, stealing an eraser from class or having some marijuana in their locker at school, something along those lines.
Something other than murder. Let's put it right there. Something other than murder. The most heinous crime that can be committed is to take the life of another human being. Sorry.
10 seconds.
Absolutely.
It's at the top of the food chain, everybody. There's a hierarchy on crime. It's unbelievable. Stand right there. We have callers, people who want to weigh in.
The idea that we're going to be serially bringing these people in to sit with the victim's family one after another, obviously there's only so many pastors they can have. And if their pastor's Al Sharpton right now, that's fine, but then that's it. We don't want any more black pastors coming in here or other Jesse Jackson, whoever was in here earlier this week, sitting with the victim's family, trying to influence the jury in this case. And I'm not saying the state is even aware that Mr. Sharpton was in the courtroom. I certainly wasn't aware of it till last night. But I think the court can understand my concern about bringing people in who really don't have any ties to this case other than political interest.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am crazy.
That was attorney Kevin Goff, who's part of the defense team, the McMichael Bryan defense team, the men who are accused of, who are on trial for killing Ahmaud Arbery. He does not want black pastors in there, which is, that was something that they said to Dr. King and Reverend Wyatt T. Walker and Reverend Joseph Lowry and Reverend Ralph David Abernathy and Reverend James Bevel and on and on and on. I mean, traditionally the leaders, the people who've led us, this is the first time in our American experience when we've been led by elected officials. And I think that we have to have a rethink on that, because you need to have people who are free enough to lead you. And that's traditionally the preacher. All right, everybody, I want to know what you're thinking. Call us at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. We're talking with attorney Robert Patillo, Southeastern Regional Director for Rainbow Push and host of his own show on WAOK every Sunday out of Atlanta, but you can hear it all over the world. It's from 1 to 4 Eastern Standard Time. Doubtless he will be talking about this case among many other fascinating topics. I love his take on things. What did you make of what the attorney said yesterday, and what kind of environment exists in the courtroom where he felt comfortable saying that?
Well, I think a lot of people haven't been to Brunswick, Georgia, because if you notice, you did not hear like an audible groan in the courtroom. You didn't hear any outrage. Nobody stood up and said, that is outrageous. Well, he said it because it's kind of par for the course once you get outside of 285. I need people to understand, when you leave Atlanta, as soon as you drive outside the city limits of Atlanta, you are basically back in Mississippi now. And so in the remainder of the state that's outside of Metro Atlanta, these things happen often. I've had clients be banished from counties in Georgia. That's still a law there. I've had far more incendiary comments than that be made in court. And so the fact that the defense counsel is just comfortable saying it also tells you that he knew that this judge was comfortable hearing it. It also says that he understood that there will be no repercussions and that will not negatively impact his case in any way, shape, or form. So we need to look at exactly what's going on in these courtrooms, because just talk to the local lawyers and they all have horror stories about the unfair treatment that their clients often experience in places like this. And when there's no one around who's able to, really check these folks on it, it becomes almost impossible to get action on it. And then when you run for some of these offices, if you don't have the public support behind you, the incumbent judge will have the police union behind him, will have the sheriff's association behind him, will have the trial lawyers behind them, because one of the big areas where black defense lawyers are usually behind the eight ball is campaign financing. These judges have to run for re-election. And if you don't think some of these big law firms making max-out contributions to them influences the way that they rule, particularly in an election year, you don't understand human nature. And that's something that people don't think about. Like when a lawyer walks in, and it's an election year in particular, and they're before a judge who they just made a $2,500 contribution or a $5,000 contribution between themselves and their wife, they have a whole lot more leeway than my little young black self walking in there with no political pull and no conversations to be had. A lot of these decisions are made on the golf course, for example. Golf courses we're not allowed on. Country clubs where there's a $500,000 a year capital requirement in order to simply be a member. Well, we're not in those clubs, so we're not on that same first name basis with the judges. So it's a systemic problem that has to be made, that has to be fixed from the bottom up, and it's that good old boy system that has always existed. This lawyer would not have felt comfortable to say we don't want no Jesse Jacksons up in here unless he knew that judge probably had made those exact same comments and jokes with him in social settings going back years. So when we talk about fixing the system, it has to start with, one, understanding it. Understanding exactly how the system works, not being afraid of it, not hiding out in our own cudgels, not getting distracted by the latest political catnip, but really making a concentrated and a consecrated effort to look at what's happening now, look at what may happen in the McMichael case. Look at what's probably going to happen in the Rittenhour case, and deciding that we're not going to have those things happen going forward. Because trials have, for a long time, not been about right or wrong. I don't know if they've ever been about right or wrong. It always comes down to who has the money, who has the power, who has the connection, who has the complexion for protection, and what people can get away with, as opposed to what the law says.
773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. Let's get your thoughts about the McMichael Bryan murder case. They are on trial for the murder of Ahmaud Arbery and the Kyle Rittenhouse case, who's on trial for, gee whiz, one does not know, because one would not know that this is a murder trial the way that this has been handled, everybody. And will the families, these two families who lost their loved ones in the Kyle Rittenhouse case, will they get any justice? We've not seen them. We've not heard from them. It's as if they do not exist. It's as if the people who were killed just vanished into thin air. Let me go to you, Maria. What's on your mind, Maria?
Hi. I have just been really riveted by the discussion by the panelists, and I agree wholeheartedly with their comments, as well as those that have spoken as well as Shapiro. But it doesn't take any tea leaves to see how this case will be decided. One thing I would like to do, I would like to see the judge investigate it, because he's demonstrated how biased he is with this case and has made some questionable rulings. Whoever is in the powers to be, they should also review all his previous court case decisions, especially those with defendants of colors, to see whether there were any judicial errors committed, as well as for any judicial biases. This judge has demonstrated his bias. He has sent codes via his cell phone tune and his offensive jokes and other comments to the public about his stance with this case. And then finally, well, not finally, but where are the victim's family? Were they banned from the court? Did the judge say they can't be there? Like they're saying that the chart can't be there as well. It seems that this trial has been rigged in favor of a baby-faced killer, because he's killed two people, so there's no doubt about that fact. Also, even though this decision, the acquittal that's coming, may be seen as permission to hunt down protesters, it will only apply in Wisconsin, but other state courts may do the same with other court cases.
Hey, everybody, call me. Monica, you call me too. 773-763-9278. Maria has spoken. Lady Norma, what's on your mind?
Good morning. Thank you for taking my call.
Thank you.
Many blessings to you and your family.
And to yours, and to you and
welcome.
yours.
Thank you. Now, in this McMichael trial, my perception is that all three of them will go free, or the McMichaels will get a slap on the wrist. In the Rittenhouse trial, I think that Rittenhouse will probably go free. That said, I agree with those things, but that's what I think will indeed occur. Moving on real quick, I do agree with Shapiro that it will pretty much be open season on Black people. Now, we're coming up on this 2022 election, okay? We know that this is a concern about Black people being able to vote. So I think those who wish to oppress are sending a message to Black people and our humanitarian allies that, Black people have bullseyes on our foreheads, okay? I think they're attempting to intimidate us ahead of that election. Then I think I would suggest that Black people send some messages of our own.
Like what?
I think that we may want to be much more focused in how we spend our money this holiday season. Keeping in mind, there's a reason why they call Black Friday, okay? There's enough money spent between Thanksgiving and Christmas, in the case of some businesses, to float that business most of the year.
Absolutely.
Let's be much more focused.
Lady Norma?
How we spend our money.
Okay. Be more focused on how we spend our money. You went out. I just want to make...
Yes. And other thing is, finally, and I know this is more of a deep dive here, but I'm going to say it anyway, because this is the portion that we typically leave out, our energy/spiritual portion.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Yes.
I think it's very important that we as Black people in particular, but really any Americans actually, but that right now I'm going to speak about us as Black people, that we claim the United States as our own. We don't be outliers anymore, because as individually and collectively at a spiritual level, we create our own reality. And if we don't claim this as ours, we don't give ourselves the authority to make the changes we want to see. So claim it. This is our country. Forward and backward in time. I know what all that means, but claim it solid so that we feel confident and we give ourselves the authority to make these changes. It's not okay for people to put bullseyes on our forehead. We want to live in a place where our well-being is paramount, where we can thrive, and where we feel good about being here. And if we want that, then I would respectfully suggest that at an energy level, at a spiritual level, that we claim this country as ours.
Well, absolutely.
That's fine.
Well, no, I'm
my thoughts for today.
No, I hear you. Look, because it is. And the fact is, it belongs to all of us, no matter how long you've been here.
Exactly.
No matter how short a period of time you've been here.
Exactly.
But, Black people have been the other, and we have to reject that ourselves. I'm with you, because trust me, you go to other parts of the world, you will become very clear on how much of an American you are. And I claim that. And that is why we fight to make this country what it's supposed to be. That's why I criticize it. You only criticize that which you love. I mean,
exactly. And that's what I'm saying. I think, but ourselves in our own hearts, we know we came over on slave ships, that our ancestors came on slave ships and all of that. But that's what I'm saying. Claim it forward and backward in time. Ours.
Listen, but that was our journey. But Lady Norma, that was our journey to come here, and all of that. We didn't come on top of the Mayflower. We came at the bottom of it, and that is our journey, and that's part of the American journey. Just as genocide of indigenous peoples is part of the American journey, just as bringing people from Europe who were disrespected throughout Europe, that is part of the American journey. All this stuff is part of the American journey. period. It's the American story.
Exactly.
Lady Norma, I've got to bring in some other phone calls, but I'm totally feeling you.
Take care.
I love you, girlie.
Well,
love
thank you very much.
Putting something on our minds today. I love you. And from Sandwich. Thank you. And Sandwich, where is that?
Sandwich is about 20 miles west of Aurora.
Oh my goodness, I love it. Okay, how are you?
I am great, Santita. Thank you for taking my call.
Of course.
Obviously you can probably tell from my voice, I'm a middle-aged white lady, and I am infuriated with this trial in Georgia. It's hard for me to even talk without swearing. I am so angry. The fact that they're pulling, saying black pastors, not pastors, but, throwing in that race card just sends my blood pressure skyrocketing.
But don't let it do that.
It's just so, huh?
Don't let it do that. I don't want, we need you here.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
My wish is that every white pastor, priest, rabbi, whatever in that area shows up for that family today, because that is, because if you can't use the black pastors in there, bring all the white ones in there and support them and show people that this is just plain wrong and that these guys are just idiots, They totally murdered that young man, and they all deserve to be put in jail or prison for the rest of their lives.
And you know what? I'll say this to you, Ann, from Sandwich. I love it. And, the thing is, even though this is racialized and there's racism all through this case, the fact is, if this is not dealt with, no one is safe. Because some of these men have treated their white wives so aggressively and so mean-spiritedly. This is a human issue. This is racialized in this particular case. But the fact is, no one is safe until everyone is safe. I can only imagine what these guys are like at home. If you jump in a car or a truck and you decide you're going to chase someone down, I'm like, I have got me a Class A fool right here. I'm serious.
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
That is not someone who is calm.
Oh, no. I'm just as angry with the Kyle Rittenhouse thing. I grew up in Wisconsin, and I am ashamed of what's going on up there with Kyle Rittenhouse. He's just as guilty.
He is. But, no one has told him. Yeah. And that's what makes me so sad. And it speaks to a real cultural problem we have here. Ann, I want you to stay with us for a hot second. Do you mind?
Oh, sure.
Stay right here. Let me bring up Renee. Renee, you have a question. I want you to be able to do this before we get off the air. You have a question for Attorney Patillo. Renee, what's on your mind? I know it must be something if you're calling us before you're on your way to class.
Oh, well, school is canceled for today.
Oh, okay.
So students can get vaccinated. But thanks for taking my call.
That's right.
I have a statement, too. I live in a county where it's been documented that prosecutors have knowingly prosecuted innocent black boys and men who were tortured into false confessions. Rogue cops and prosecutors and judges in Chicago have convicted innocent people on false charges and then worked to keep those victims behind bars. And, some of those men were even executed. And executing innocent black men caused our Republican governor to put a moratorium on the death penalty, and then somehow he ended up in
They put
jail.
him in prison.
Right, they put him in prison.
And we knew he was going to go to prison because he was trying to do right.
So now, if prosecutors and policemen and judges can conspire to place innocent black men and boys in jail, we know they can conspire to keep guilty race heroes out of jail, because they made Kyle a hero after he killed them. Hundreds of thousands of dollars flooded into his mother within days of the shooting. Now, here's my question, though. I agree with Attorney Patillo on everything he said. And even though the prosecutor didn't ask the question, like, Kyle, why were they chasing you? What did you do to cause this? Can the jurors, when they deliberate, because we can all infer, can they bring that up and say, why was he being chased by all of these people?
Renee, Let's stay. And Renee, I want you and Ann to stay here because I want to get Brian in with his question also. But Robert, can you speak to Renee quickly because we only have about 5 minutes left in the show, and we'll stay on Facebook Live and on the Santita Jackson Show page on YouTube for a couple more minutes after the show.
Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, the jury can
Stay
only
right there, Brian.
consider-
Hold on.
The jury can.
Okay, thank you.
Of
The
course.
jury can only consider the evidence and information that has been presented at trial. You can't guess on it. That I don't think any of us, if we put yourself in Kyle's position, for example. If you were claiming self-defense, would you want the jury to be ruling on not things that were put into evidence, but just kind of stuff they guessed on or kind of their gut feeling? So you have to think about it that way.
Okay.
Stay right there, Renee, because we're going to talk a little bit as soon as we get off the air, okay? Stay right there. Let me go to Brian, though. Brian, what's on your mind? Brian from Joliet.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And I just like to thank you. And I just like to say, whatever happened to the George Floyd Policing Reform Act should have been passed by now. I don't know what's happening with that.
The filibuster.
And if I may make quickly a comment. Two important books I read when I was 19. One, Attica by Tom Wicker. It's 50 years ago now. Terrible conduct by the authorities in that situation. Attica. And then the other one, Rights in Conflict by Dan Walker. And those two books. And I'd like to hear your comments about why the George Floyd Policing Reform Act has not been passed yet.
Oh, the filibuster.
Thank you very much.
No, thank you so much, Brian. Thank you, Brian. I mean, the fact is, it's the filibuster. I mean, while we have had this majority, slender as it is, I do not feel that our administration, the Biden administration, has exercised the political will. They have not flexed as they have needed to. We've needed our voting rights protected. They've not done that. We have needed the Justice in Policing, George Floyd Act. They have not done that, and they should have. And we're going to pay a price in 2022 because people who voted for them in 2020, who had misgivings, said at least we're going to get these two pieces of legislation through. We're going to get some police reform. We're going to get our voting rights protected. That did not happen. If they had suspended the filibuster just for those two acts, that would have meant a whole lot. And that is what they could have done, but they did not do it. Shame, shame, shame. Shame, shame, shame. And we are going to pay. Robert Patillo, your thoughts?
On the point about the George Floyd Act, I would say beyond even the filibuster, the problem is having a Congressional Black Caucus that has not a drop of courage. Because the same way that Joe Manchin and Christian Sinema could hold up the entire presidential agenda, the Congressional Black Caucus is the largest caucus in the House of Representatives. So if they wanted to, they could have said nothing else is getting done until the George Floyd Act gets done.
Oh, wait a minute. And then wait a minute. Cory Booker could do that on the Senate side. You could just have one, right?
In the House of Representatives in particular, and Cory Booker in the Senate, all it takes is one senator to object to any part of the president's agenda. So Cory Booker could, him or Rosario Dawson could go down to Puerto Rico like Adam Clayton Powell used to do, and just hang out and say, look, I'll be back when y'all ready to vote on this. Otherwise, good luck. That's what Joe Manchin did. That's what Christian Sinema did. So we have to put some pressure and some blame on our elected officials for selling us out on a pennies on the dollar for everything that we put them in office to do. And that also transitions to what we've been saying about these trials, because we have to ensure that we are holding elected officials responsible on every level of government for what we put them in office for. Nobody voted for a judge to be making Asian jokes. Nobody voted for a judge to be allowing people to talk about no black pastors in court. Nobody voted for a prosecutor, a district attorney, or state's attorney to not try to convict people. Nobody voted for a prosecutor or attorney general to have 11 white women on the jury. So when we talk about making sure the people who are in charge are held responsible, you are the people in charge. And therefore, you're going to have to, in election season, make sure you get some folks in there who are actually ready to execute your agenda, and also ensure
1 minute.
that if you are really interested in it, in Georgia, you don't have to be a lawyer to be a judge.
Absolutely.
It's not anywhere in the Constitution. So if you feel like being a judge, if it only takes 1,500 votes to be a judge, well, you better go ahead and run.
Well, how about that?
And figure out how to be a lawyer later.
But you know what? But the corollary to what you just said is this. If you did not vote, then you did vote for these kinds of judges. If you did not vote, you voted for these kind of prosecutors. You have got to get involved, everybody.
30 seconds.
The system works when you work it. Whatever you say about these people with whom you have these, with whom we have these political disagreements, they understand the system and they work the system. They do. You must do that. Stay right here on the Santita Jackson Show channel on YouTube and on the Santita Jackson and Friends page. We're going to get some closing thoughts from Ann from Sandwich and from Renee from Chicago and from Robert Patillo. And I hope that you'll join us on Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson on Sunday from 7 to 9. Go on to iHeart and check that out. And then, of course, Rainbow Push tomorrow at 930 East 50th Street, 9:30 in the morning, but 10 o'clock on the Impact Television Network and on the rainbowpush.org page and all of that. So I cannot wait to be with you. Don't get a day off, but it's always a joy to be with you. I love you, everybody. Let's change the world. I'm Santita Jackson. God bless. Hey, everybody. You know what? Do we still have Renee and Ann there? Do we still have anyone there? Well, Robert, I want to hear your closing thoughts before we go, because I mean, whew.
Come to the phone right now.
Oh.
Please leave a message.
Oh,
Thank you.
Oh, okay. I think we got someone's voicemail. But Robert, what should we be looking out on? You know, I mean, because we're going to see the Rittenhouse in the Rittenhouse case. We're going to see the closing arguments. I think they're going to be like 2.5 hours apiece. We see that on Monday, and then we see the jury go into deliberations. What should we be looking out for?
Absolutely. So there's a couple things. Let's take the Rittenhouse case first. During closing arguments, there's still a lot of work that has to be done by both the prosecution and defense. So there's that conceptualization of primacy and recency. So a lot of things that you messed up in trial, you can actually fix with a compelling closing argument, because people remember the last thing that they heard a lot more than a lot of the stuff in the middle. So even the terrible testimony that the prosecution allowed in, with a good closing argument and presentation, you can win that still. If you bring up the fact that that they say an affirmative defense, as the defense has to prove to the jury that he had the right to self-defense, even if you presented no evidence at trial to support that, if they bring up the fact that he was the provocateur, that bringing an assault rifle to a protest by its very nature is provocative in violation of the Wisconsin statute, if they bring up the fact that he was there not lawfully, he was not hired to be there, he was not supposed to be there, he came across state lines on his own for whatever reasons, but he had no legal right to be there, which does not allow you to avail yourself of self-defense. I can't break into your house and then claim self-defense against you because I don't have a right to be in your house. Similarly, he had no right to be there. The fact that he was not legally allowed to possess that firearm at that point in time because he was under the age of 18 means that he cannot avail himself. Literally, if the prosecution had filed a motion on it, there's a good chance the judge would have had to rule that the self-defense claim was inoperable in this case. So during a strong closing, you can prove those things and you can convince the jury of that. But there's been nothing to indicate this prosecutor has the ability to put together a cogent argument of that nature. Similarly, for the defense, they're going to have to hammer down on the evidence that they presented, hammer down on the the surviving victim, saying that he grabbed the gun, hammered down on Kyle, just being there to, to whatever his excuse was. I forgot what it was at this point, to hang out with his friends, and he wants to be a cop and that stuff. Play up the sympathy card, play up that this is just a young boy who wanted to protect his community, whether that makes sense or not, and really try to key in on the fact that the prosecution has done a poor job of proving their case and that he was indeed defending himself when it comes to the events in question. So there's still opportunities for both sides. For any competent prosecutor, this is an open and shut case. It would have won this going away. But in this case, if the prosecution actually has any interest in convicting Kyle Rittenhouse, it'll have to get done in closing. In the McMichael case, and their friend Rowdy Robbie Bryant. I call them the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, Spirit of white supremacy. What they are going to have to depend on is that they have sympathetic jurors as part of that nearly all-white jury. The evidence has been damning. The testimony has been damning. In any other situation with any other jury composition, there will be no question that they will be convicted. And frankly, at the close of the defense's case in chief, they will have been trying to negotiate a plea offer to keep them from getting executed in most other situations. But with the composition of that jury, they're going to have to start playing to those fears of those white women, and particularly those white women who are former law enforcement officers on that jury, to say that, look, we were trying to protect our community. We've been ravaged by crime. This individual was breaking into a house, and we were simply trying to stop him. You saw on video that we were trying to cordon him off, stop him from running away, and that if he had not gotten aggressive with them, that they would not have had to defend themselves and fire upon him, that it was his fault, and they were acting to patrol and protect their community, play on those white women's fears in order to try to win the case. For the prosecution in the McMichael case, key in on the evidence that you've got him. The witness who said that no, there had been no string of break-ins in that community. No, there was no exigent situation where people were in fear and in danger of their lives from these criminals coming into their neighborhood. Key in on the video in particular that very clearly shows 3 white men in pickup trucks harassing this individual, and play up the fact that regardless of what he had done before, if he had been running down the street carrying a TV on one shoulder and the air conditioning unit on the other shoulder, it still does not give anyone the right, under even the most liberal interpretation of the state citizens arrest law, to cordon him off, chase him down on trucks, and then shoot him. That is when you call the police, and if you don't trust the police, then you cannot become a vigilante and take the law into your own hands. Both cases kind of hinge on how you interpret white vigilante justice. If you believe that white people should have the right and the ability to get guns and take the law into their own hands, then both will be acquitted. If you think that white people have to abide by the same rule of law that the rest of us do, and that they are not above the law simply because of their whiteness, then both will be convicted. And it's really going to come down to how both cases are argued in the closing arguments, and how the jury views this evidence.
Well, I think. Do we have to obey the law? And is killing all right? I want to know that. Period. Is vigilantism, is vengeance, is that okay? We need to answer those questions. I told you, I had the pleasure of knowing, having been influenced and raised in part by Jack Odell. This was the man who Dr. King was told by President Kennedy he needed to fire him because of his progressive politics. In the 20s, 30s, I guess he had been in the Communist Party, Socialist Party, as so many Americans were, because they were so sick of the oligarchs who were raping and pillaging them. Sound familiar? Well, I remember telling him, and I shared this with you, I believe, Robert, one day. I had strep throat. I wasn't feeling well, but it was beginning to come upon me. I was at my parents' office and put my head down on the desk, and he walked into my father's secretary's office, and he said, "Honey, are you okay?" I said, "Oh," because I was telling my mother I really need to get home because I do not feel well because my throat was beginning to close. And, she was trying to get out of the office too, but there were just a lot of things going on. And I said, "Oh, I'm just a young black woman, just really struggling." He said, "Always remember, Santita, that you are first a human being." I'll never forget that, Robert, as long as I live. I was 15 when he said that. He said, "First, remember you are a human being." Sometimes that gets lost in these fights and in these struggles. Mr. Rosenbaum was a human being. I forget the other gentleman who was killed. He was a human being. They were attached to people. People loved them. People loved them. They belonged somewhere. Even if they only belonged in the hollow of God's own hand, they were somebody's. The other young man who was shot, when will they get justice? Period. Kyle Rittenhouse, what kind of home did this child come from? What kind of community embraces this kind of behavior? How can you all say that this is right? This is insane. And we will never achieve civilization if we excuse this kind of behavior. If he becomes a martyr of the right or a hero of the right or whatever it is. This is wrong, everybody. It's just as wrong as it can be. Robert, this is wrong. You must look at the legal system. You must look at the behavior of these judges. You must look at the behavior of the prosecution. You must look at a courtroom where a lawyer, an officer of the court can stand up and say, "I don't want black preachers in here in 2020, 2021." You gotta ask, what kind of courtroom are you running? What kind of side conversations are you all having? Are you serious? I don't care if he was cut off, Lorraine. You're going to. No, 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 no. The lips will reveal what the heart attempts to conceal. These are side conversations that have been had, and he put them out in public, just like President Trump did. President Trump has said nothing that people don't say privately. Robert.
You're, and look, this is people don't like knowing how the sausage is made.
Okay.
People love a good Chicago hot dog. It's on the bun with the sesame seeds on it. And you got the relish, the onions, the pickles, the mustard. No ketchup. Never put ketchup on a hot dog. And all those things.
Thank you.
But you don't want to go to. You never want to go to the meat packing plant, or you never want to go to the farms where they're raising these animals. Hey, you see the cyst that they have on the abscesses that have to be drained, the diseases that these cows get from the conditions they're living in, the hoof diseases, where they have to bring in a hoof trimmer on a regular basis to make sure the cows don't get their feet cut off, the antibiotics they have to inject them in for them to live through these conditions. You don't want to think about that when you're biting into your hot dog. And that's very much the way that the legal system is also. There's been plenty of judges and plenty of cases that I should have lost, but I had a good relationship with the judge, and that helped my client ultimately. There have been other cases that I definitely should have won, but I was in Griffin County, Georgia, or Oglethorpe, Georgia, Montezuma, Georgia, something along those lines. And when a Confederate judge walks in and a Confederate prosecutor walks in, you know that it's a fait accompli before you get to the death. And we don't want to think about our system operating that way, but it still does until this day. Often, those of us who live in metropolitan areas and big cities, we have an idea that the whole world, the whole country is like that. The majority of America is still rural.
Absolutely.
It's still very non-progressive. It's, when you look at those maps, look at that electoral map from 2020 or from really any election, and don't look at the state level map, the red versus blue states. Look at the county level map. You'll see there are only about 20 places that are progressive in the whole country.
Period.
The big cities, the big urban areas. The rest of the map is 99% red and deep, dark red. And once you understand that, you understand that you, if you're in, the capital of Wisconsin, there's a very different legal system than if you're in Kenosha, Wisconsin. If you're in Atlanta, there's a very different legal system than in Brunswick or in Glenn County, Georgia. And it's our responsibility to start changing that so that it's not, that your justice is not dependent on your zip code as it is today.
Amen to that. Ann, are you still there from Sandwich?
I am.
Hey, what's your closing thought?
Well, first, I just want to say that Attorney Patillo is brilliant.
Absolutely.
Absolutely brilliant. I love your show, and I love listening to him talk all the time. And all I just wanted to say is, I don't want white vigilantes to be heroes, to be martyrs, to be anything than what they are, which is thugs. They're thugs, period. And we should not be celebrating them, hero worshiping them, none of that. As a white person, I'm sick of it. I'm sick of watching other white people taking advantage of their quote unquote white privilege. And it's not a quote unquote, it is. It's their stupid ass white, it's their stupid white privilege that makes them think they can be vigilantes and do whatever they want. And it's wrong. And it has to get stopped. I don't know how we're going to stop it, but it has to be stopped.
Well, I mean, Ann, you're stopping it. First of all, your feelings, and then calling it out where you see it and working to eradicate it. We do it one by one, case by case. So, I mean, because the fact is, you ought to be sick of it. We all are. We all ought to be sick of it. All of us are not. Power will fight to protect itself. I am not mad at anybody. I just know that if we continue in this way, we're not going to win. Because God does not have a hierarchy on God's children. We're all God's children. We're all equal in God's sight. No one's superior to anyone. No one's inferior to anyone. And all of this injustice, this is crazy. It's unhealthy, and it is not going to serve us well. It doesn't serve us well. It hurts us. It hurts us. It hurts us to look at a legal system and to begin to disbelieve in its integrity, to disbelieve that it is integrous. That's a problem for everybody. Because one day, black people are the canaries in the mine. See, you send us down into the mine, and if the bird comes up alive, then you can go down. Then you can send the miners down there. But if we come up gasping for breath or dead, well, then you got a problem. Well, we are knocked out and dead in this cage that's been sent down into the mines. What hits me is eventually going to hit everybody else. Because while we had African American slaves, we had white indentured servants. White people had to work their way to freedom too. White people could not vote in America unless you are propertied and a male. And we keep forgetting these lessons that are right before us. They're right here. So, I don't want you to get sick. Don't use those negative words. So let's not call that into our consciousness. Just say, you know what? I am determined. I'm going to make this world right. Just say that. It'll even lift your energy. I don't want you to get upset, and I don't want your blood pressure shooting up, girl. I don't want that. I want you to feel empowered. That's what we've been talking about today. That's how Pastor Hatch opened up the show. You should feel empowered to make a change. When there are elections, you need to find out who's running for judge, who's running for prosecutor, who's running for everything, and then let your neighbors know. Talk about it. Let's have some takeaways from this process, because this is a process, when we look at it, that is under our control, Ann and Brian. It's under our control. We control this thing, because we elect these people, or we don't elect them by our non-votes. You there with me, Ann?
Oh, I agree totally.
You have
power.
I agree on that. You have power. You have power, Ann. You've got it. You've got it. Because we don't want to be in a constitutional monarchy, we're in a constitutional republic. That means we've got to get involved. Oh, look, please. I know why I know why Megan wanted to get back over here. So she'd have a vote that actually mattered. But I don't want them to be involved in our politics over here. You have to choose which day you'll serve. You can't be a prince and be part of this American thing. Now you got to make a decision, because we defeated monarchy, and I'm with that. But that's a whole different story for a different day. But stay right there. I got Anita from North Carolina who wants to make a quick comment before we go. Anita, what's on your mind?
Hi.
Hey, sweetie.
I just wanted to say I'm totally upset, and good morning to everyone else. I am totally upset that they're telling Reverend Al and Reverend Jackson all these years of nonviolence, with Martin Luther King being shot, all this time nonviolent, and they have the nerve to act like they're going to cause the jurors to something to happen to them violently.
Yes.
And no, chickens coming home to roost, like Reverend Jeremiah Wright said. If you do wrong, you get wrong. You keep killing people all over the world, enslaving people in the country where we live in, taking other people's land, then you get violence. Do not even dare blame that on Reverend Jackson and Reverend Sharpton, because we're going to really stage some protests non-violently and sit there all night in the rain, in the snow. They will not get over on that line. They're trying to say that they're responsible for harm coming to the jurors. No. Donald Trump, I voted for him, and I didn't vote the second time because he is inciting violence in our country. And that's not what a democracy is about, not for all the people to be equal. You take justice in your own hands and mishandle it. And people that are talking about their vigilantes, I mean, where's their police training? I mean, I'm sure some of them have been in the military, but they need to have some kind of training before they even do that in the neighborhoods. That shouldn't be some fool jump out there and say, hey, I got a gun and I'm crazy. They could be on drugs or anything that night, or drunk, or mad at someone else and kill somebody else. We can't just leave that loose and hang it and then blame it on Reverend Jackson and Reverend Al. I'm not about to go back 400 years in history. They already got rid of Jesse Jackson Jr. because he was nonviolent. Okay, now they're getting ready to start talking about his dad. No, it just can't happen, Santita. I don't have anything else to say about it. But one more thing.
Okay.
Are you still there?
Yeah. I'm of course.
Rittenhouse, I think that's how you say his name.
Rittenhouse,
he said
yes.
That I can't carry a pistol legally, but I can carry. And then he was quiet about the rifle. What is he trying to say? That at 17 they can carry those type of rifles, but not a pistol? Or was he saying, I don't know how old military people are. The youngest can be in the military that can carry rifles. So I didn't understand his comment about he couldn't carry a pistol legally. That's why he had the rifle.
You know what? I'll say this. You know what Dr. King said just before he was killed? And he was killed when he came up in opposition to the military-industrial complex. Remember that? He was able to survive desegregating the United States, breaking Jim Crow. But when he came up against the military-industrial complex, a year to the day, to the minute that he announced his opposition to the Vietnam War, he was killed. Don't ever forget that, Anita. He announced his opposition to the Vietnam War April 4th, 1967 at 6 p.m. He was killed about a minute after 6 p.m. on April 4th, 1968. 1 year to the day, to the minute. Okay? To the minute. That's how cold-blooded this thing is. He said it broke his heart to realize that the greatest purveyor of violence in the world was his home, the United States, and it's still true. We're going to have to break this yoke of violence in the culture. In the culture. Nonviolence and love, these things these are decisions. And we're not going to be blessed if we continue on this godless path. Now people are afraid of going to the ATM. We're afraid of walking down the street. Some people were shot. Robert, in Hyde Park, Chicago. That's the University of Chicago neighborhood, a beautiful black business, Kilwins, where it's a beautiful old-fashioned like malt shop where you get ice cream and candy. She's closed down the shop for the rest of the year. She said, I can't put my staff at risk. Like, what? No. We've got to make some decisions about who we are supposed to be and how we are supposed to be living. I'm not talking about who we are and who we've been, because who we are and who we've been is quite violent, quite mean. Remember, lynching was an after-church activity. Smallpox was put in blankets and given to indigenous people. Who does that? 90% of their food, buffalo, were killed. Who does that? Let's just be honest about who we are and who we have been and make a decision to go in another direction. That's what has to happen, Anita. I'm not saying I have all the answers, but I believe that to be true. So what we're seeing in the Rittenhouse and the McMichael and Bryan murder cases, what we're seeing is as American as apple pie. That is what's being played out here. That's what's being played out, who we are. If it was going to be who we're supposed to be, then we see some justice. That's not what we're seeing here. It's just this.
You're not going to start lying on Reverend Jackson.
Woof.
That's a total lie. I don't know how they're going to cover that one up.
Well,
that Reverend Jackson is violent. Really?
Well,
water hoses and dogs.
Well, you know what? Anita, you have spoken. Robert, I'm going to give the final word to you before we all shut this down so I can let Matt and Paul go for the day. You there, Robert? Robert might have gone on. But I tell you what, think about that, everybody. Don't worry about that. Reverend Jackson, history will absolve him and who he has really worked, what his works and what he has tried to do in the society. And so he hasn't even been there yet. Well, he might go, but he hasn't been there yet. But he's been told that he shouldn't come. Oh, bless their hearts. Oh, Father, forgive them for they know not what they do. This is just so crazy. So crazy. You know, you've killed someone. You're sitting in front of Mrs. Arbery and you're watching her weep every day. Do you have a heart? Are you kidding me? You would ask that a minister not be there to help her? It's just sick. Crazy. It's not crazy. It is sick. This kind of mean-spiritedness just can't stand. So, everybody, I love you. I can't wait to be with you tomorrow. Well, Rainbow Push, and then Sunday, Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson, and again here on Monday. I love you. I love you. Love you. Love you. Love you. Love you. Love you. It's cold-blooded. I hear you. I hear you, Effie. I hear you. Yes, I hear you, Lorraine. I hear you, but it's all right. It's all right. Carol from the left coast, Yolanda, Dave from the north of the border, Yolanda, Effie, my girl, Mr. Rogers, Renee, everybody, thank you all so much for calling in. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Paul. Everybody have a great weekend. I'll see you on Keep Hope Alive. Go to the iHeart app so that you could go and listen to the show. And of course, go to Keep Hope Alive with keephopealiveradio.com so that you can find out where you can stream us live. And of course, we're on the Santita Jackson and Friends page, the Reverend Jesse Jackson Senior page, and my YouTube channel. So, ba-dum. I love you. I will see you on Sunday and again, God willing, on Monday. Love you. Bye-bye.